Back in your grandparents' day, their victory gardens weren't just about producing food. They had to focus on the right kinds of crops. But here's the twist. There were once 20 plants that thrived in American backyards and kitchens that you can't legally grow anymore. Some of them will surprise you, and a few might even be sprouting next door without anyone realizing it. The reasons behind these bans could completely change the way you see gardening forever. Datura. Datura grows like a weed, bearing large trumpet-shaped flowers that glow white under moonlight. Its beauty once tempted gardeners who admired its showy blooms and exotic look. But every part of the plant carries potent alkaloids, scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscyamine that can twist the mind and body. Just a few seeds swallowed can bring terrifying hallucinations, seizures, or death. In rural America, cases of accidental poisoning spread through the 19th and 20th centuries, especially among children curious about its unusual seed pods. By the 1950s, warnings grew sharper, and many towns banned its cultivation. Known by nicknames like Devil's Trumpet and Jimson Weed, it earned a place in folklore as both mystical and deadly. Today, it is treated as a forbidden plant, too dangerous for casual gardens. Its night-blooming flowers hiding poisons that once lured the unwary into peril. Rosary Pea. At first glance, the rosary pea looked more like a treasure than a plant. Its tiny red seeds, marked with a single black dot, were strung into necklaces, bracelets, and children's crafts. In homes across the 1950s, they dangled from strings without suspicion. But hidden inside each glossy seed was abrin, a poison even deadlier than ricin. Just one cracked seed chewed by a child could be fatal. Stories of sudden sickness and death turned admiration into fear, and families rushed to throw away jewelry and dig up the vines. Unlike kudzu or knotweed, rosary pea was not destructive to the land. It was destructive to people. Its danger lay in how beautiful it looked, tempting children to play with something that could take their lives. By mid-century, it was banned outright, remembered not as a decorative bead, but as a lethal trap dressed in color. Castor Bean. With huge star-shaped leaves and striking red seed pods, the castor bean plant brought a tropical look to otherwise plain gardens. It grew tall and bold, commanding attention in borders and flower beds. But inside its glossy seeds lay ricin, one of the most lethal poisons known. Ingestion of just a few seeds could cause organ failure and death. During the 1950s, stories spread of children and pets falling gravely ill after swallowing them, and families learned to fear the plant's beauty. Unlike some banned plants, castor bean was not invasive. It was simply too deadly to allow near homes. Authorities classified it as toxic waste, and gardeners tore it out despite its dramatic look. Today, it remains banned in many areas, remembered as the plant that fooled families with its exotic charm while hiding one of nature's deadliest secrets in its seeds. Coca Plant. On the surface, the coca plant looks plain. Small, glossy leaves on a modest shrub that could pass for any garden evergreen. But in its native Andes, those leaves carried power. For generations, they were chewed to fight fatigue and hunger, woven deep into the culture of mountain life. In the United States, however, coca became infamous as the raw source of cocaine. The plant itself is not invasive, not toxic to touch, and does not spread wildly. Its crime is what those leaves become once processed. By the 1950s, federal law made sure that no American garden would harbor coca without the closest government watch. Cultivation today is still tightly banned, with even a handful of shrubs treated as evidence of intent to produce narcotics. Poison hemlock. With tall green stems, delicate fern-like leaves, and clusters of white flowers, poison hemlock looks almost identical to harmless wild carrots or parsley. But it is one of the deadliest plants in North America. Every part of it is laced with alkaloids that paralyze the muscles and stop the lungs from working. Even brushing the sap into the eyes or mouth could bring sickness, while a single meal of its leaves could be fatal. Children in the 1950s often mistook it for something safe, leading to warnings and bans across neighborhoods. Farmers ripped it out near grazing fields, fearing poisoned milk or meat. Its grim reputation goes back to ancient times. It was poison hemlock that ended the life of Socrates. By mid-century America, it was treated as a garden outlaw, feared not for spreading wild, but for its silent, lethal trick of resemblance. White snakeroot. White snakeroot looked harmless in shaded woods and pastures with its clusters of small white flowers swaying gently in summer. But in truth, it caused one of the most feared rural illnesses of the 19th and early 20th centuries, milk sickness. When cows grazed on the plant, its poison, tremetal, passed into their milk. Families who drank it fell violently ill, and many died. Even Abraham Lincoln's mother is believed to have died this way. By the 1950s, with the link finally clear, farmers tore out white snakeroot wherever it appeared near pastures or homes. Children were warned never to touch it, and communities treated it with the same caution as poison hemlock. Khat. Khat is a tidy, fast-growing shrub with pointed green leaves, easy to mistake for a simple hedge plant. But in East Africa and Arabia, chewing those leaves is a social ritual prized for the burst of energy and alertness it brings. The secret is caffeine, a natural stimulant that works on the body much like amphetamines. In America, that chemical placed Khat under the Controlled Substances Act, banned outright from gardens or greenhouses. Unlike Kudzu or Knotweed, it will not choke out forests or break walls apart. But lawmakers saw a different threat: addiction, heart strain, and mental unrest. For that reason, Khat never made the leap from cultural crop to American backyard. Peyote Cactus. Peyote does not look dangerous at all. A small rounded cactus that grows low to the ground, it lacks the sharp spines of its desert cousins. But inside its button-like tops lies mescaline, a hallucinogen that reshapes vision, time, and thought. For Native American tribes, peyote was sacred, used in ceremonies that stretched back for centuries. Federal law eventually carved out a narrow exception for that religious use. But for everyone else, cultivation was banned. Peyote is slow-growing, often taking a decade to mature, making it a plant of patience and ritual rather than casual gardening. Still, its ties to hallucinogenic experience placed it on the restricted list. Betel Nut Palm. The betel nut palm has a tall, slender trunk crowned with long, arching fronds, a picture of tropical charm. Yet it is the nut inside its fruit that shaped its reputation. In South and Southeast Asia, chewing betel nut wrapped in a leaf is a daily custom, offering a buzz like tobacco. But science revealed another side: mouth cancers, gum disease, and slow damage from years of chewing. By the mid-20th century, the United States placed heavy restrictions on its import and cultivation. The palm itself will rarely grow outside warm southern climates, but attempts to raise it indoors or in greenhouses drew scrutiny. Unlike Kudzu or Loosestrife, it was not an ecological invader, but a public health hazard banned for the harm linked to its seeds. Kudzu. Kudzu was once hailed as a savior of American soil. In the 1930s and 1940s, it was planted along bare slopes to stop erosion, its vines racing across hillsides with green promise. By the 1950s, homeowners even welcomed it into gardens for shade and quick cover. But the vine did not know restraint. Kudzu spread with a speed few could control, climbing trees, fences, and even telephone poles, smothering everything beneath its thick canopy. Nicknamed the vine that ate the South, it grew a foot a day in summer heat, turning farmland and forests into jungles. The U.S. Department of Agriculture eventually labeled it a weed and outlawed its planting in many states. Japanese knotweed. At first, Japanese knotweed seemed like the perfect ornamental. With tall, bamboo-like stalks and lush leaves, it offered privacy screens and quick greenery for bare yards. Grandparents planted it near porches, fences, and patios, admiring its fast growth. But soon came the nightmare. Knotweed sent roots called rhizomes down 10 feet and out 60, cracking through concrete, lifting driveways, and even breaching foundations. Once established, it was nearly impossible to kill, returning stronger with each attempt at removal. By the late 1950s, homeowners and cities alike realized it was less a plant and more a structural threat. Laws were passed banning its sale and transport, treating it as an invasive menace. Today, Japanese knotweed is feared by property owners across the country, its reputation as destructive as any weed could earn. Giant hogweed. Few plants look as commanding as giant hogweed. With towering stalks reaching up to 15 feet and massive white flower heads, it was once grown to impress. But hidden in its sap was a danger few expected. Contact with skin, when followed by sunlight, caused burns, blisters, and scars that could last for years. Children brushing past it during play often ended up in hospitals with painful injuries. Even cutting the plant unprotected could leave gardeners scarred. By the end of the 1950s, authorities declared hogweed a public hazard and ordered its removal. Communities dug it out by the roots, burned it, and warned each other never to touch it. Oleander. Oleander was once the jewel of mid-century gardens. Its pink, white, and red flowers bloomed through summer, and its evergreen leaves stayed glossy even in drought. Homeowners adored its toughness and beauty, planting it along driveways, schools, and public parks. But hidden in its stems and leaves was one of nature's most potent toxins. Just a single leaf, if eaten, could kill a child or a pet. Horses and livestock died after nibbling its branches. Stories of sudden deaths spread quickly through neighborhoods, and the plant's charm soured into fear. By the 1950s, many towns banned it from schools and yards, and families tore out shrubs once planted with pride. Garlic mustard. Garlic mustard doesn't look like much at first, a low green weed with heart-shaped leaves and small white flowers. When crushed, the leaves give off a faint garlic smell, which once led settlers to use it as a seasoning. But behind that harmless look lies a ruthless invader. Garlic mustard spreads fast, forming dense carpets that smother native wildflowers and young tree seedlings. Worse still, it releases chemicals into the soil that block other plants from taking root, a silent sabotage that reshapes entire forests. Though not poisonous to people, its ecological impact was devastating. States soon banned its sale and transport, urging homeowners to pull it out before it set seed. Monk's hood. Also called wolf's bane, monk's hood carried an air of mystery in old gardens. Its tall stalks bore deep purple hood-shaped flowers that looked almost regal, adding drama to borders. Yet its beauty masked a venom feared for centuries. Every part of the plant contained aconitine, a neurotoxin so potent it could be absorbed through the skin. Gardeners who handled it without gloves sometimes felt tingling or numbness. Larger doses caused vomiting, convulsions, and even death. In folklore, it was tied to witchcraft and poisonings, a reputation that only deepened its eerie presence. By the 1950s, safety guides warned families never to grow it where children might play. Its danger was too great, its uses too dark. And so monk's hood joined the list of crops torn from gardens, admired only in photographs, and remembered as a flower with a lethal secret. Tree of Heaven. The name promises grace, but the Tree of Heaven delivered headaches. Once planted, it spread aggressively, sending up shoots from its roots that cracked sidewalks and invaded foundations. Even worse, it released chemicals into the soil that killed off nearby plants, leaving bare patches where gardens once thrived. Farmers cursed it for ruining vegetable plots, and city officials despised it for damaging buildings. To make matters worse, the tree became a favorite host for pests like the spotted lanternfly, which devastated orchards. By the mid-20th century, communities banned it outright, no longer charmed by its quick shade. The Tree of Heaven became a symbol of how an imported plant could turn from hopeful ornament to urban plague, tearing apart landscapes one stubborn root at a time. Purple Loosestrife. Purple loosestrife brought tall spikes of brilliant violet flowers to wetlands and backyard ponds. Grandparents admired how it drew bees and butterflies, turning marshy corners into living tapestries of color. But beauty soon gave way to alarm. The roots of loosestrife grew into dense mats that crowded out cattails, sedges, and other native wetland plants. Fish habitat shrank, birds lost their nesting grounds, and waterways became clogged with purple walls. By the 1950s, conservationists realized that what seemed like a charming ornamental was quietly reshaping entire ecosystems. Farmers and gardeners watched helplessly as loosestrife swallowed pastures and ditches, leaving behind silent, barren wetlands. States banned its sale and planting, and removal campaigns began in earnest. Hydrilla. Hydrilla is an underwater plant with delicate whorled leaves that once seemed perfect for aquariums and backyard ponds. But once it escaped into lakes and rivers, it grew with frightening speed, forming dense underwater forests. These thick mats blocked sunlight, starved fish, and clogged water systems. By the 1950s, it was already spreading through southern states, carried from aquariums into open waterways. Boats became tangled in it, irrigation pipes jammed, and swimming holes vanished beneath its tangle. Unlike water lilies or native pond plants, Hydrilla was nearly impossible to control once established. Entire lakes had to be treated or drained to fight it. States quickly banned its sale, treating it as one of the most destructive aquatic weeds in history. Opium Poppy. The opium poppy is one of the most striking flowers ever placed in a garden, with soft petals in shades of pink, white, or purple, and large round pods that sway in the breeze. To many, it looked like nothing more than a graceful border flower, while the dried seeds were even sprinkled on bread and pastries. Yet behind that beauty sat a danger that could not be ignored. Those same pods carried the sap used to make morphine, heroin, and other opiates. By the mid-20th century, U.S. authorities banned home cultivation, no matter how innocent the intent. Owning even a small patch could lead to harsh penalties because the line between ornamental flower and narcotic source was simply too thin. The irony is that the same plant has fed both kitchens and hospitals for centuries. Yet its darker side forever secured its place among forbidden crops. Foxglove. Foxglove stood tall in cottage gardens, its spires dotted with bell-shaped blossoms in shades of pink, purple, and white. Children once slipped the flowers over their fingertips, pretending they were tiny thimbles, unaware of the danger. Every part of foxglove contains powerful chemicals called cardiac glycosides. In the right hands, they became medicine, the base of digitalis used for heart treatments. But in gardens, the dosage was never safe. Curious pets or children who chewed the leaves or blooms could suffer nausea, dizziness, and even sudden heart failure. Even brushing sap on the skin sometimes causes irritation. By the mid-20th century, foxglove was no longer seen as a fairy tale flower, but a hazard waiting in the yard. Garden clubs advised against planting it near homes, and many families pulled it up for good, unwilling to gamble with a beauty that carried death in its stems. Which of these crops scare you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and watch the next one.